Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Tonight's episode is going to be a fun one and a cool one, and it's something that I really haven't seen anybody do. I mean, there's some stuff on Crossroad Demons. That's what we're talking about tonight, by the way. There's some stuff on it, but it's all just surface stuff. Nothing really gets really into it. So I figured let's do that tonight. This will be fun. The reason we're doing this show is because I saw something on Robert Johnson, who was this unbelievable blues player way back in the day. And the story always was that he wanted to be a blues musician, and he wasn't very good. The people that were really good at the time that had the big names, he would go in there and want to play, and he just wasn't worth a damn, so they would not let him play. But he really wanted to be a musician because he didn't want to be picking the cotton in the fields or doing anything like that, which is, the sharecropping jobs that were available at the time. He didn't want to do that. So he thought, well, I can just kind of travel around and play music and make a little bit here, a little bit there. They would play on the streets, they would go into clubs and play and make a few bucks. And once you've kind of worn the town out, you move on to the next town. So that's what he wanted to do. But as I said, he wasn't very good. So he got in with a couple guys who had a pretty good name, and he convinced them to let him get up on stage one night. So he gets up on stage and he plays, and he stunk. He was not good at all. And he ended up basically getting shouted out of the joint, and they pretty much told him, dude, you suck, get out of here. So he disappears for over a month. Nobody sees him for over a month. He comes back, and he walks up to these people that are playing on the stage, the same people that he had played with before that told him to leave. And he convinces them to let him play again. He says, man, I'm a lot better now. I've really been working. I've been practicing. Trust me, I'm really, really good. So I guess they figured what the hell, they wanted to get off stage and get a drink or something. So they said, go ahead. So he gets up there and starts playing. And according to all of their testimony, the people that saw him play that night and those other musicians, they all said that it was the greatest they'd ever seen, ever. That he was doing things with the guitar that they could not do. And they did not even understand how he was doing it. So he went from being somebody who was horrible to a master level guitar player in about a month. Now the story goes that when he disappeared, he went down to the Crossroads and made a deal with a Crossroad demon. That demon gave him a guitar. It tuned a guitar for him and said, if you take this guitar, we got a deal. And he took the guitar. So that is the story that made me want to do this show, because I thought, that's a cool story. I've heard it before, but it's a really cool story. But I'd like to kind of get into Crossroad Demons a little bit, because that's something I've never heard anybody do an actual show on that was in any way really informative. So that's what brought it up. So Crossroad Demons are entities. They're demonic entities that will make bargains, like formal agreements, contracts with humans. And they will grant them a wish in exchange for their soul. That is what the lore says. Now, the wish that they give them is not unlimited. Okay? It deals with some sort of talent, musical talent or acting talent or something like that, some kind of creative talent. And that's almost always what the deals are. Sometimes it's for money, sometimes it's for women, that kind of thing too. But it's not something where somebody will say, I wish that I could fly like a bird, or I wish that we would have world peace. Or it's not huge, big things that they grant. It's little wishes that have to do with money or wealth or power or talent, usually. In the majority of cases, it's a 10-year deal. So you go there, you make the deal, you get to live 10 years with this amazing gift that they've given you, and then at the end of 10 years, your contract is up. Now, the popular knowledge on this is that when your deal is up, they will send hellhounds to collect your soul and drag you off to hell. The actual lore on it is a little bit different than that. Hellhounds do get sent. They will also send other demonic entities after you. But one part that is never talked about, that is in the actual lore, is at the end of that 10-year period, you don't necessarily have to go to hell. At the end of that 10-year period, you can exchange another soul for your soul. So let's say you make the deal, 10 years goes by. It's time for you to pay. You now have to give up your soul. But you manage to convince somebody to willingly take your place. If you have somebody that is willing to offer up their soul in place of yours, then they will take them and you're free to go. The only drawback is you also lose whatever it is that you got the wish for in the first place. So if you wished for amazing wealth, at the end of that 10 years, even if you get somebody else to take your place, you lose all your money. If you wished for talent, you wanted to be this amazing musician, at the end of the 10 years, you don't have that talent anymore. You're just a normal person again. You're the same way you were when you made the deal. So that is a part of lore that I've never heard anybody talk about, but is actually part of the actual lore. Now, there are several different ways that it has been described that these deals or these contracts are done. In some of the lore, it says that the deal is sealed with a kiss. So at the end of it all, after you've signed and everything, there's a kiss that's exchanged that concretes the deal. In other bits of lore, you have to sign the contract in your own blood. So those are two ways that the deal can be sealed. Both have roots in the actual lore. Now, when I say the lore, there's not one single lore that deals with Crossroad demons. You have old hoodoo lore, you have Brazilian lore, you have English lore, you have all kinds of different European lores that deal with Crossroad demons. You even have American lore on Crossroad demons that goes all the way back to the early Quakers and Christians. There's even lore there that talks about Crossroad demons. That lore actually has a lot to do with the witch trials and all that kind of stuff. They believe that when you make that deal with the devil, that there will be a mark that is on your skin that signifies that that deal was made. That's what was called the devil's mark. That's why they would examine the witches to try to find that mark, to prove that they had made a deal with the devil for the power that they possessed. So there's lore from many different areas of the world. So on a lot of these things, there's going to be multiple ways that it can be done according to the lore because there's so much lore on it. So how do you summon the demon? In almost all the lore, what you do is you have to go to the crossroads. Most times, it's at midnight in a lot of the lore. In other lore, it's at 3 a.m. But it's always at night. In a couple of the lores, it is only on All Hallows Eve. So only on Halloween can you do this in some lore. I'm not sure what the actual real answer to that would be. I can tell you it's at night because all the lore states it has to be at night. But exactly what time or exactly what day of the year or if you can do it every day of the year, that's up for debate because there's differences. I would probably say that out of all the different lore on this subject matter, I would probably go with the hoodoo lore. I think that is probably the most accurate because it has the most information out of all of the different lores. And according to the hoodoo lore, you can go multiple times. It's always at night, but it can be multiple times throughout the year. Sometimes you have to go and negotiate a couple times before the deal can be struck. So that would be my answer if I was pressed on it. But anyway, you go there at night and you summon the Crossroad demon by burying a container, some little box, that will be full of different ritual items. In almost all the lore, you have to have a photograph of yourself in the box. You have to have graveyard earth. You have to have a black cat bone, and you have to have yarrow root. And you have to bury it in the very center of the crossroad. Now, if you've done this correctly, then what will happen is the crossroad demon will be summoned and will show up. Usually that demon is going to look like a person. That's what the lore states, that it's going to be indistinguishable from a normal person. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a person's going to show up. And they're going to make a deal with you. Once you negotiate the deal and it's all done up, the contract in a lot of the lore is actually written on your skin. So if you're going there to make the deal, the contract will appear on you and then it will disappear. So it won't stay on you forever as far as visibly. It'll be there, but you just won't be able to see it. It'll just disappear. Now, the person that makes the contract does not hold the contract. Even though it appears on your skin, it disappears. That contract is not held by you. That contract is also not held by the crossroad demon that makes the pact with you. That contract is actually held by another demon that is higher in rank, that is in charge of the crossroad demons. That is the person that holds all the contracts, and that is who will send the hellhounds and the other demons after you to collect. Pretty interesting stuff. Now, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different lores. I talked about the Christian lore. That centers on making a deal with the devil to gain power most times. Some of those deals also included fame and wealth. Sometimes it was for youth, sometimes it was for beauty, but the majority of the times in the Christian lore on it, it was about power. And when you're making a deal for your soul, the demon doesn't actually get your soul. But what it does is it damns your soul to hell in the Christian lore. And as I mentioned, there is a mark that's left behind when you make that deal with the devil. And that mark proves that you've been in league with the devil. In the English lore, Crossroads had a couple different uses. Because Crossroads were also the place where they buried some of the dead people. Usually they would bury criminals, and people that committed suicide would get buried in the crossroads. Now, the reasoning for that was because they wanted to kind of confuse the spirits of those dead people, because criminals are kind of a pain in the ass and they're dangerous. You don't want them coming back and doing anything to you, especially if you're the one that put them to death. So you want to bury them at the crossroads so they don't quite know which way they're supposed to go to get to you. They kind of get confused and go the wrong way. And you want to do that for the suicidal people too, because they're kind of not right in the head, and you kind of don't want crazy people messing with you either. That was the thinking behind it. That is why they buried those people in the crossroads. So the thought was that the crossroads was a point where there was a lot of spiritual activity going on because of the dead that were buried there. There are people that died in turmoil and with a lot of rage and a lot of despair. So those strong emotions cause spiritual activity a lot of times. So the thinking was that that spot already had so much paranormal activity going on because of the people that were buried there, that made it easier for demons to cross into this world there and to manifest to you so you could make a deal with them. That was the thinking behind why a crossroads was the place you would go to make this deal with a demon in the English lore. Now, there's a lot of different stuff, like in hoodoo, for example. Hoodoo has a being called Papa Legba, and that's kind of the head honcho of the Crossroads. And that is a demonic entity that is in charge of making all the deals and all that kind of stuff at the Crossroad. And you can either go at midnight or you can go just before dawn in the hoodoo lore. And usually the power that would be bestowed on you in the deal almost always had to do with something musically. So it was either like being able to play a musical instrument a lot better, or being able to sing better, or being able to dance a lot better, something like that. It was usually having to do with music in some way. That is the lore that talks about Robert Johnson as well, because he was into hoodoo, and that whole area back then. You're talking about the Bayou area. You're talking Creole. You're talking Old Cajun. You're talking hoodoo and voodoo. It was a lot of that going on back then. So a lot of those people believed these things. And they believed that they could make a deal at the Crossroads. And they believed that they could ward off evil by creating certain talismans and stuff like that. They believed in the hoodoo religion. So that is the lore that has influenced that particular legend quite a bit. You even had crossroad lore in Greek mythology, which is mind-blowing. In Greek mythology, the crossroads were associated with both Hermes and with Hecate. And they had shrines built on crossroads, and they would hold ceremonies there. It had to do with the different gods and bestowing good fortune onto travelers when they made journeys and stuff like that. It was really, really interesting stuff. They used to hold, they called them suppers, but it wasn't really like a supper like we would think of. It's more like an offering. Okay? You remember in the story of Cain and Abel in the Bible, how the two brothers both made offerings to God on the altar, and one made an offer of the meat from the lamb that they raised. That was Abel. And then Cain made an offering of the different vegetables and stuff that he had grown. And God liked the offering that Abel made and did not like the offering that Cain made. Thought it wasn't good enough, and that pissed Cain off, so Cain killed his brother because he was jealous. That's the kind of thing a supper is. It's an offering to the gods. So yes, you are setting up a banquet. Okay, you're setting up an offering to God of different fruits and vegetables and meats and stuff like that. But you're making an offering to the gods. And it's not like you're setting it up and then eating it yourself. The only people that were allowed to eat anything off the offering were the priests. Regular people couldn't. So when I say a supper, that's what I'm referring to. But they would do that in order to pay tribute to the goddess of the crossroads, so that they would have good fortune on their travels and stuff like that. In Brazilian mythology, you had all kinds of crazy stuff. You had something called a besta-feira. Okay, now what that is the Brazilian version of a werewolf. And that was tied in with the crossroads. And the crossroads were also a place for religious ceremonies, that they would pay tribute to different African deities and all kinds of really, really interesting stuff. So in many, many, many different lores from around the world, they talk about the crossroads. Now, I went into all of that just to kind of give you a background on it. I didn't get super deep into all of it, but I wanted to get into the background a little bit. Another really interesting thing here is that in some of the lore, the contract lengths varied. So it wasn't always 10 years. The majority of the time it was 10 years. But it could either be less or more depending on the value of the soul. So if it's a person that has a pure soul it would be worth a lot more. Now, you would think that would mean that that would give you a longer contract, but in reality, it actually gave you a shorter contract. The more pure your soul was, the shorter the amount of time the contract would be for, because the demon would be very anxious to collect. Now, that's not in all the different lores. That's only in a few. But it's so different and so interesting to me that I thought, I gotta include that. Is this real? Does this actually happen? Well, first of all, yes, demons are absolutely real. And yes, there is lore that talks about making a deal with a demon at the crossroads. All of that is 100% true. Does it actually work? That's up for debate. I'm going to get into something here in a minute that might explain that it does. But one thing I want to say is that demons are real, and they are incredibly hostile and mean, and they are perpetual liars. That's important to understand. Remember, Jesus called Satan a liar. That's important because deception is a powerful tool that they use to manipulate you to achieve the goal that they want to achieve. Demons have no power to either buy or to trade for your soul. Your soul belongs to God. Point blank, period. Demons never have the power to buy your soul or to trade anything to you for your soul. What they can do is they can bestow upon you power in order to corrupt your soul. They cause you through deception to turn from God, accept the gifts that the demon give you, and corrupt yourself. By turning away from God like that, you are condemning yourself to hell. But they have no power to actually take your soul. They never possess your soul. God will send your soul to hell. It's always up to Him. So that's what I want to get across. Demons are liars. So keep that in mind. If you choose to align yourself with demons, you will lose your life because they will kill you. You will end up in darkness and basically slavery. They're going to take you to hell. You are going to be tortured for all eternity. That's what's going to happen. But they do not have the power to buy or sell your soul. I wanted to clear that up. I thought that was extremely important. Now, what I want to get into next starts with the story of Robert Johnson. And that is the 27 Club. Now, Robert Johnson is a member of the 27 Club. What the 27 Club is a group of musicians and artists who were insanely talented. And they all died at the age of 27. Some people say that these artists died because they made a deal with demons. Some people say they were Illuminati sacrifices. There's all kinds of different theories on it. But I think it's extremely interesting that the majority of deals that Crossroad Demons make are for a period of 10 years. Now, if you look at somebody that dies at 27 years old, and you go back in their career, 10 years from 27 is 17 years old. So if they make the deal when they're 17, they get started in the industry. By the time they're 18 and legal, they're on top of the world. And then the time period that they are allowed to have their talent and to be world famous and all this kind of stuff is the prime of their life. When they're the youngest and they're the sexiest and all that kind of stuff, because sex appeal is a huge part of the music industry nowadays. So that's their best years. Once they reach around 27 years old, they're getting close to 30, they're starting to get older, they're not looked at the same way anymore. So it makes sense that if these people are selling their souls to demons, that they would do so around 17 years old. A 10-year contract would put them at 27 when they die. Now, there's a lot of talk and theories and different stories of a lot of people in the music business and acting selling their souls for success. It's one of those commonly known secrets that everybody talks about in the industry and in the business, but everybody pretends nobody talks about, if that makes sense. So there is something to this. Is it Crossroad demons that they're making deals with? Maybe. I'm not exactly sure. I know that that does take place, that there are deals made where people sell themselves and worship demons in order to get success. I know this for a fact that it happens. So talking about the 27 Club, I want to briefly list you the people that are in it, first of all. Some of these people you will not have heard of. They were very talented musicians and artists, hugely talented, but they go all the way back to the 1800s. So some of them you won't know. Some names you will. But I want you to understand how many people are on this list so that you kind of understand how real this could be. It's not like it's a couple people and we're just kind of grasping at straws here. It's a lot of people. So, starting in the beginning in 1864, Alexandra Levy, Louis Chauvin, Robert Johnson, the guy we were talking about, Nat Jaffe, Jesse Belvin, Rudy Lewis, Joe Henderson, Rockin' Robin Roberts, Malcolm Hale, Dickie Pride, Brian Jones, Alexandra, Alan Blind Al Wilson, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Arlister Dyke Christian, Jim Morrison of The Doors, Linda Jones, Leslie Harvey, Ron Pigpen McKernan, Roger Lee Durham, Wallace Wally Yon, Dave Alexander, Pete Ham, Gary Thane, Cecilia, Helmut Colin, Chris Bell, Zenon DeFleur, Jacob Miller, Masako Natsumi, D. Boone, Alexander Bashlechev, Jean-Michel Basquiat, I probably butchered that name, Pete DeFreitas, Finbar Donnelly, Chris Alston, Dimitar Vuev, Mia Zapata, Kurt Cobain, who we've done shows on in the past, Kristen Poff, Richie Edwards, Stretch, Fat Pat, Freaky Ta, Cammy, Rodrigo Bueno, Sean Patrick McCabe, Mario Serrano, Jonathan Brandis, Jeremy Ward, Daver Mosky Bobic, Brian Otteson, Valentin Elizalde, Damian Damo Morris, Orish Grinstead, Elizabeth Bisbee Amarian, Jade Goody, Dash Snow, Lily Timbo, Nate Nick, Achnick Spin, Amy Winehouse, Richard Turner, Nicole Bogner, Sahara Davenport, Sarush Lulush, Farazamand, Slada Guterres. Some of these I know I'm butchering the names and I apologize. I've never heard of some of these people. Thomas Lowe, Thomas Fiquette, Anton Yelchin, Kim Jong Hyun, and Frito Santana. So as you can see, this is a very large list of people. Every single one of these people on this list were insanely talented and had a lot of success. And every single one of them died at 27 years old. Now, could it be that those people that I just mentioned, all those names, could they have sold their souls to demons for a 10-year contract? And then it was time to collect. Could that be possible? Maybe. We know that there's a lot of that goes on in Hollywood and in the music industry. We know that deals are being made. People are worshiping demons. We know it. We know it because they have admitted it. You can go onto YouTube and you can watch a lot of different interviews, whether it's Lady Gaga or Beyonce or somebody like that, and they talk about selling their soul to Satan. They've admitted it. And I'm a big believer, if somebody's admitting to you they've done something, chances are they did it. Look at Katy Perry. She's admitted the same thing. She was a Christian singer who could not get famous. She got nowhere singing Christian music. And according to her, she sold her soul to the devil and started doing popular music and got famous. So they've said they've done it. Is it possible? I would say yes, it's possible. So I'm going to throw over to Old Boy now, and I'm going to get his opinion on all of this and see what he has to say about it.
Thank you, brother. And this is a very interesting one, guys. Do I believe in the Crossroads? We'll get to that in a minute. And the 27, that's a very interesting one because I'm the one that said we should do the 27. And the Crossroads he was talking about, I told him he said, well, we should put it together. And it actually sounds like it's going to be a good show, guys. So let's get to the 27 Club first. That's not just any coincidence. Think about it. All those names have died at the age of 27. Now, here's where I'm going to get into this. What I think happens is, I don't know if it's 10 years. What I think is, and another one with the Crossroads, just to throw that out, I think Bob Dylan, they claim he was a horrible guitarist and singer, and he went to the Crossroads and he came back and look at his career. That was one thing that we hadn't talked about. That's another one that supposedly got famous at the Crossroads, because I just wanted to throw that part into to keep this going. It could be, because I believe that. And this is going in with everything, with the 27 and the Crossroads, because they all intertwine, I think. There's almost 60 to 70 something people on this list over since the 1860s, and there's probably been more, we just don't know, till 2020. So it's been happening. It's not coincidence. And that's like the hellhound thing. So if you guys, maybe we could do an episode about that, the hellhounds, how they take the souls from people and then they go after them. If they don't do the deal they made, they go after the people. Like they say they signed their contract for 10 years and they try to run away from them. They send the hellhounds after them. So we maybe can do a show about that. And another one is what I think is with this whole thing is what he was talking about. He made a comment earlier that you could save your soul by switching it with somebody else that's willing. Well, I don't just believe that. I think you could also take it from them if you trick them. Like the Skeleton Key, if you guys ever seen that movie where at the end they change bodies with the people. I think it's a voodoo or hoodoo thing. That's also talked about that, where you could change Chucky. You remember that, guys? That movie of the doll? Remember he changed the killer jumped in the body of the doll and he was trying to jump into the kid and get in the kid's body, but it was going to be him. And I think it was that Prodigy, that one where the kid, he's born, and the guy, he's a murderer. He found a way to jump into the newborn body. I don't know. Right when they're born, there's something. That's the whole with taking innocent blood, but it jumps into another body, and that takes over the soul totally. And the boy too recently did that, where the haunting took over or a ghost, or I don't think it's a ghost. I think it's somebody who keeps doing this, jumps into bodies. And jumping into a body is a demon. I think that's a whole different story. But I think that's what happens. I think they take over somebody's body, and they can do that. And I think that's how they keep. And what happens to the soul of the other person or the baby, the devil takes it, or the demon, or whatever. It all goes in the end, same place. So, and I think that's what happens. And it makes a lot of sense. And it's maybe something new, an idea that we probably didn't even think of. And it was getting to me when I was talking about that we can need to do a show about that. Can you take people's souls and change their body and take over their body? That would be a great show to do, man. That would be a really good one. If you think that's a good idea, guys, let us know in the comments. Tell us what you think, and we'll do the show. That's probably going to be another show too we can do. I like it when we do shows because it always prequels to other shows. We could split off and do another one. But the Crossroads, I totally believe in it. I've heard of this so many times where people have gone there, buried, did their ritual, and came back famous. It wasn't just singers, movie stars, and other things. And I believe it because I believe you can. There's something about that. I think there's something there. Something must have happened, or at that time, there's something. There's something about that place. So I think that's what happens. I think these people, what they do is I guess it was it started as a story or something, but James said there's different versions all over time. So this is probably just maybe where it at is been exaggerated, but maybe, I don't know. There's songs about it. There's movies about it. Ralph Macchio did a movie about this. They talk about the Crossroads. He was a guitar player and he played against the devil. It had one of his, kind of about this whole story. It was a cool movie. I think it was in the early 90s, 80s, end of the 80s. I don't remember. I forget what the movie's called, but it was a good movie. And I think it was about the same thing, about him fighting for his soul. And if you ever hear the Devil Goes Down to Georgia, the fiddle and stuff, I think that's kind of if you think about that song, it's kind of similar. But it was like more of a that he took his soul for a fiddle, but to become famous. But the devil, he ended up beating the devil. And you know how the song goes. That's one of the most famous country songs of all time. Great song too. You guys ever hear it, Charlie? Another thing. What I was talking about earlier about demons and selling your soul, it's happening throughout time. I don't think it's 10 years. I think it could be lifetimes. See, people get this. I think a lot. Aleister Crowley did that. And we got to do a show about him one day. I think that just like God has his army, the devil has his army. He doesn't just he does take people's souls and he uses them, and so do demons. But I think they have people who do certain things and they get certain privileges in hell when they go there because they help the devil get so many souls. I think the devil does help them. I think they're going to pay for it in the end, but I think that they get a certain privilege. They've done spells, they've done hexes on people, they've sent people to die, and it's happened. And I believe that totally. There is a price. Remember that, guys. There's always going to be a price when you do that, sevenfold. But some people don't care. I've met people like this. They don't care. To get what they need, money, fame, riches, jealousy, a love, they'll do anything. They'll do anything to live longer, not to age. I've seen it. So just remember, you could do that for music, especially to become a better guitarist, singer, dancer, football player, baseball player, basketball, whatever. Who knows how many people have done this? But the 27 Club, and I think the Crossroads have something with that. I think they all in between somehow. And I think what I was saying is, I think there is some people who have found a way to jump bodies, and they've done it for hundreds of years. Maybe not with dolls, with humans, with animals. I think they have done this. And most of the time it's humans. And giving up the soul to the devil or the demon for that lifetime. And I think you only got so many times say that you got 60 years to find another person. And they do it. 7 years. And they keep living on because there are always people saying they've been around, they knew stuff that's happened before it did, years before it happened. And you'll see pictures of people. And I think maybe that's not even really time. If you think about it, maybe this explains time travel. And maybe it doesn't. But maybe that some people have jumped bodies over so many years, hundreds of years, maybe even thousands. They found a way to do it. And they've been doing it. And there's people who have found a way to sell their soul to demons, the devil, whatever you want to believe. And this is how they do it. And like James says, it goes into their body like as a contract. I believe that. Or maybe the devil or demon, whatever they send, takes it. And then the hellhounds come after them later on. Some people actually run. And like he was saying, they try to get somebody else to take their place, but they lose all their gifts. So that would be like you live, but you also lose all your gifts. So that's a catch-22 there, guys. So think about that. So if you guys some people out there might be thinking, well, maybe I should do this. You gotta better think about what you're doing. Is it worth it? Because there's going to be something you're going to need to do to get what you want. And you're going to be called upon to do something. And if you don't do it, you're going to regret it. Trust me on that. You're going to regret it. And it don't have to, you know what? People think dying is the worst. It's not. Going after somebody you love is worse. That's a worse hell because there's nothing you can do about it. So remember that, guys. Think about when you're listening to the show, remember that. Think about what you're doing. And I hope you guys enjoyed this one because I really did. There you go, James.
First thing is we did a show on hellhounds already. It's on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. If you want to listen to that show, if you haven't heard it yet, it's on there. And it is a doozy of a show. That was one of the subject matters that was most requested by our listeners that they wanted to hear. So we have done that show. As far as the body snatching idea for a show, that's a great idea. That would be a fun show to do. We'll have to work on getting one of those together for you. Because there's a lot of different examples of that throughout different lores. I mean, one example that we did a show on before was changelings. That is a fairy spirit that is taking over the body of a child, taking its place. And they take your child off to the fairyland and make it a slave and all this kind of stuff. And the fairy takes over and is your child. We did a show on that also, on changelings. That's one example of that. But I think what Old Boy is talking about is more along the lines of your consciousness going into another body. So that when it's time for you to die, you don't have to go to hell, you go to another body. That's interesting as well, and I would love to do a show on that when we have more time to do it. But that is something that you hear a lot about in the elite circles. That is something that they have made movies about. That is something that they are actively talking about all the time. So I would not be surprised if there is not some sort of ritual that enables that to happen. That is a insanely interesting subject matter. And sometime in the future, we will definitely do a show on that. We've done shows in the past where we've talked about it a little bit, but I think an entire show dedicated to that subject would be really awesome to do. I think that it would be very interesting, and I think you guys would enjoy it. So let us know down in the comments if that's something you'd like to hear, because I would definitely like to do that show. But the quick version of it is it's something that they actively talk about all the time. There's a lot of movies about it. There's a lot of books about it. It's an idea that is constantly being put out there as something they do. And usually when that happens, it's either because they are doing it or because they are trying to do it. Usually because they are doing it. But they will broadcast what they're doing, and they will broadcast their future plans through movies and music and books and stuff like that. It's how they kind of brag about what they're doing. The reason for that is there are rules. And you have to let people know what you're up to. You can't just do it in secret. You always have to give warning to what's coming. And the way they kind of get around that rule is by putting it out there for everybody to see, but they do it in the form of fiction as a movie. So that they're saying, hey, I told them I was getting ready to do this. So, I have followed the rules, but most people look at it and say, man, that's crazy, but that's just a movie. Why do you think that things like The Simpsons have been able to predict things exactly how they happen years before they happen? Why do you think there's so many TV shows and movies that have predicted events that are taking place now and that have taken place in the past way before they actually took place? The reason that that happens is because they tell you what they're doing. They tell you what they're going to do, and they tell you what they're actively doing. They have to. That's the rules. But they do it in a way that you think it's make-believe, so you don't believe it. Now, I'm not saying every single movie is true. But what I am saying is there's a lot of things that happen in movies that is real. They will change names. They will change a little bit about it to make it fiction. But a lot of times, those are real stories you're watching. Those events actually happen to somebody. It's just not the person that it says it happened to, if that makes sense. They'll kind of change the names and everything to protect the innocent. You've seen that little thing they do? That's how it works. A lot of times when you're watching something, especially like horror movies and stuff like that, a lot of that stuff actually happened to somebody. It's just been kind of exaggerated, and it's been made into a format that makes it entertaining to watch. But some of those things really do take place. So with that being said, I'm going to throw it back over to Old Boy so that he can give his final shout-outs, and we can wrap the show up.
Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this show. It was really cool. I'm really glad that James did this one, because we both wanted to do it for a while. He's been talking about the Crossroads for a while, and we've been talking about the 27 Club too. All those names, man, think about it. Go look it up if you guys can. Look it up and see the truth for yourself. Put it together. Put all the pieces together. Look for the Selling the Souls, anything like that. Look it up and tell us in comments what you think of what we were talking about. How do you like it? We like to hear feedback. You guys on ParaX or YouTube, or hopefully sooner or later somewhere else, we're talking about putting our show on top, maybe on Spotify down the line too, on top of that, all the other places we're on. That would be cool for you guys. We're thinking about it. We don't know. We've been looking at it too. But just remember that, guys. If you really enjoyed this show, tell us what you think about this one. Tell us what you think about what we're talking about. We're not just sitting here talking and wasting air. We want to hear you guys' feedback. And please don't argue. I mean, I know if you're going to do it, you're going to do it, but I don't want to we don't want to argue with you. Like we'll say a couple things back, but usually we'll just block you. We have a lot of people want to argue or complain about the ads and stuff that we can't control that. That's YouTube. They do the ads. Sorry guys, just to let you guys know that, just to give you a heads up. But I want to thank you guys from Para X Radio for listening to us every weekend, Sunday nights, 9 Pacific, 12 technically in the morning Monday. So it's the end of the weekend. But I'm glad you guys listen to us every weekend. Thank you for checking out. If you want some merchandise, if you want to check us out on with merchandise or shirts and stuff like that, he'll tell you where to go. We have shirts, blankets, all kinds of stuff. We're going to probably be on a show next week. The Calling, I think we're going to do it like in a week. It's going to be really cool. Check that out, guys, when it comes out. I don't know, probably a week after, I guess, whenever he decides to put it out. And I hope you all have a good night. Misfits, Sugar Ladies, Monster Hunters, and Demon Lovers. I love you, and blessed be. And remember, don't do something I would do. I'm just playing with you guys. I love you. Have a good night.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. That's where you will find every episode of Staring into the Abyss. You will find every episode of Tales from the Abyss. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff there. We have other paranormal videos there. We have news videos that have to do with the paranormal. I do gameplay stuff there because I'm a gamer. I love that stuff. So there's a ton of stuff there for you to go and enjoy. It's 100% free, so please enjoy it. The merchandise store is teespring.com/stores/staring into the abyss. That's teespring.com/stores with an S on the end /staring into the abyss. That's where all the merch is. You got shirts, you got hoodies, you got posters, you got coffee mugs, all that stuff. You can get the Staring Eye logo, and you can also get a bunch of other designs that we've done. Different horror and paranormal themed designs. There's a ton of cool stuff there. I try to keep the prices as low as I can, and the quality on the merchandise is really good. So if you're somebody that's into merch, that's where you can get it. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for all the support that you give us. We tell you every episode that we love you. That's not just a cool little tagline that we do. We do love you. And that's what I want to tell everyone listening. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what race you are. I don't care what your religion is. Every single person listening, I want you to know from the bottom of my heart that I love you and that I pray for you. I think it's very important because we lose sight of that as a people. All of us do. We get wrapped up in things and we get all fired up about it, and we forget sometimes that we're all human beings. We all have hopes and dreams. We all want better lives for our children. There's no reason to hate each other. So when we say we love you, I want you to know that's from the heart. So thank you for listening, and I will see you on the next episode. Until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.